So 5. All right. Okay, we'll start recording. Ooh, sorry. You're all set, sir.
Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome everyone to this January 9th workshop version of the Rush Town Board. Will you please join me for our pledge of allegiance and the roll call? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic. for which
You're all
it
set,
stands,
sir.
one nation, very much. I'd like to welcome everyone to this January 9th workshop version of the Rush Town Board.
This again.
Will you please join me for our pledge of allegiance and the roll call?
So this is that live stream issue.
I'm speaking.
Okay, we'll
I
start
pledge
recording.
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. and to the republic for which
You're all
it
set,
stands,
sir.
The issue with the.
Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome everyone to this January 9th
We're just gonna get ready.
workshop version of the Rush Town Board.
This again.
That was me. Yep. All right, so. Sure, okay. All right, Supervisor, we are set.
You sure? Okay, will the deputy supervisor please call the roll?
Councilperson Corbin,
Here.
Councilperson Chase.
Here.
Councilperson Morale,
Here.
Councilperson Woolever. Supervisor Cusie.
Here. Thank you very much. You're going, for those of you who have a agenda previously obtained, you're going to see a couple of changes on the agenda tonight, nothing major. But we're going to start out with discussions about the comprehensive plan update. The draft survey, and that will be discussed by the comprehensive plan update committee facilitator, John Morelli, and Faith. I just couldn't think of your last name, Faith. I apologize. So Faith and John, John and Faith from Lavella will be discussing the comprehensive plan. And Robert Kraus is also online. Thank you very much.
We are ready, and that microphone is working, except you still have to talk right into it. Hopefully it is on. And whatever you'd like me to share, let me know.
Okay. So thank you very much for seeing us and for squeezing us in. You know, we did all this planning and then realized that the 11th was the organizational meeting and probably not a good time to be pitching our comprehensive plan stuff. I sent you a memo in front of all of the comprehensive plan survey questionnaire. I just said, you know, we believe, and this is something, a realization that the committee has come to in a good part as a result of consultation from Lavella in terms of what we're looking for. It's essential for us to understand that while the questions we ask in the survey will certainly help us formulate strategies for moving ahead, our principal interest in the surveys is to find out what people want. That may or may not include strategies, you know, we want. So for example, if there's a consensus that we want more small business in the hamlet, a recommendation from the residents that we need to change zoning might not be there. That's something that our consultant or committee will work on to put it together. Another example is, you know, residents may be concerned about the speed of traffic in some areas because they would feel safer riding bikes, so on. In this case, the traffic speed may be the problem, but approaches to solve the problem might involve things like traffic islands, benches, and other enhancements that increase pedestrian traffic, which in turn tends to slow down automobile traffic when you're driving through a more busy, area. So we're learning as we go on. So we have for you a survey. I hope you all received it. It has 10 sections in it. We expect to get a lot from the multiple choice questions we ask, but perhaps just as much, if not more, from the comments, the blanks that we've left there. Fill it in, add another page, so on and so forth. So we have read through 30 years of history on studies and issues and stuff, and we think we have a good handle, but we're not going to know it all, and we'll be missing things that hopefully the residents in town help point us out. So if you want to switch over to the comprehensive plan, the survey, first page.
John, is the survey
The survey has not gone out. We are asking for your approval to send it out. And if we get that, we
I misstated that question. How long will the survey be open for?
will be, well, the plan right now is that it will be due February 22nd. And hopefully it'll go out by the 18th or the 20th of this month. So roughly a month.
The reason why I asked that is I just this past week had 3 different residents ask me if they can still turn in the water survey.
Oh,
And the water survey has been closed for some
Right.
time.
well, officially it's closed. This will be closed on February 22nd, but I mean, if we hear more afterwards and it's still time to do it, there's no reason we couldn't consider these things, So the first part, has to do with the overall land use conservation development. And, some of these things we've heard repeatedly, keep the town's rural character. So that's a question in there. How, is this important to you? Somewhat important, not at all important. Agricultural operations, keep Rush an agricultural town. How important is it? Preserve open space. How important is it? And encourage more development. Now, this is town-wise. It's not focused on the hamlet. Next section is on the hamlet. But in general, what do people think we need to say? In the Rush Hamlet, and please don't hesitate to interrupt me at any point if you have questions. The Rush Hamlet, many people have said, I like it just the way it is now. So that's a question there. Do you like it just the way it is now? A lot of people have said, we'd like to see more businesses, small businesses. So we put that. And some people have said, we'd like to see it as a larger and more developed hub. In our questionnaire, we started out with the word, busy intersection, and so we thought that was going too far. Bustling up, I think we had, but what does the town what do the people of the town want the hamlet to become? And the second question there, do you think the town should require appearance of new construction and building renovations within the hamlet to be consistent with the hamlet's historic buildings? There is a concern that, while we might not be interested in seeing big box stores in the middle of the hamlet, other things might be developed that we think people might be interested in keeping the flavor of the town, the quaintness of it. So that's what that question is asking. To what extent is that important to people? Homes in Rush. We've had a lot of discussion about more affordable housing, less affordable housing. Rather than try to address money, we try to put in a large enough range of house types to accommodate all these things. So we have, what would you like to see? If you would like to see, there should be a wider variety of homes in town. what types of homes, townhouses, patio homes, cluster development, senior housing, so on and so forth, to give people, and also comments for additional things. So that's to address that. On the next question following that is, do you think that concentrated housing development such as patio homes or townhomes townhouses is consistent with the rural character of the town? This has been an issue of debate. We've heard a lot about it, so we put it in there as a question. Businesses. What type of businesses would you like to see more of in the town of Rush? Again, none. Current mix is fine. Again, small businesses of all types. And this is in the town, not just in the hamlet. Limited industrial development without sewers, and larger scale business and industrial development that would require the introduction of sewers into the town. So this puts it all out there for people to make some decisions about what they think we need in this town. The next section on the infrastructure and utilities goes through three issues that have been on the forefront of thought and discussion. Are sewers needed in the hamlet? Do you have issues with drinking water quality or quantity at your home? Does internet service at your home meet your needs? We don't know to what extent we are able to do anything about some or all of these, but we thought it's something that we need to identify in terms of the citizen interest. Historic preservations. You know, we have a special town, and I think a lot of people recognize that. One question has to do with the history. How big an issue is history in the value of this town as a unique place? So we're asking, how important is preserving historic sites and buildings? And how should we go about doing that, with several choices to identify strategies for recognizing, acknowledging, and protecting historic buildings and sites. Natural resources and environmental protection. Again, this is raising issues. Has your property been affected by flooding in the past 10 years? Are you concerned about the impacts of flooding elsewhere in the town? And are you concerned about water quality of Honey Eye Creek, Genesee River, and other water bodies in town? Not all of these things fit neatly into each package into each area, but we try to group them as best we can. So we wanted to find out, where is the focus? And also, what is important to you about some of our natural features, Honey Eye Creek, Genesee River, and other water bodies in town? What environmental issues are most important to you? So we want to know how people feel about all these things. Parks, trails, and recreation. So we listed 10 parks, trails, and recreation in the area here. And we asked the question, what improvements would you like to see at the parks listed above? It was just too numerous to, we could have covered pages of the questions with all of these things. So we kind of left it as a comment area. But I got to tell you, I've been involved, lived in the town over 30 years, been involved in town activities forever. I didn't know we had all these parks in town. And this is quite astounding. And we really wanted to make it clear that we have all this in town, and it's really, really unique. Recreation. What are your preferred forms of recreation on public land and facilities in Rush? And we list a number of them, and an opportunity for other as well. And it's interesting because, we went back, hiking, walking, there's some that are very identifiable. Others, nature-based activities, reading and relaxing were not as obvious, but some people said, hey, I like to sit in front of the creek and read, these type of things. So we try to be inclusive. How important is it for the town to advance the following improvements to the town's recreational facilities or programs? And these are things that have come up. Pickleball courts, we have one, community centers, meeting rooms, a boat launch, snowshoes, kayaks, tennis courts, swimming opportunities, and so on and so forth. So we listed those all here. Transportation. in the past year, how often did you walk, bike, take public transportation, or use alternative forms of transportation in the town of Rush? You know, we went back and forth whether we needed a destination, you know, to say, use these alternative transportations to get to somewhere, but we realized that just walking is getting to somewhere. It's, you know, that's a goal as well. So how important is this? To how many people? We want to know that. And what, if anything, prevents you from walking, biking, taking transit, or using other alternative transportation? You know, what's the problem? Is it traffic? Is it lack of interest, or things too far away, and so on? And finally, we ask about demographics, just to get an idea of where people live, and, you know, whether certain issues are associated with one area of the town or another, and to do that. So this is what we have prepared from basically an infinite number of questions that we could have asked. And residents are free to add their own comments to this. Okay, so before I go on to what the survey will look like itself, or any questions on all of that? Yes, sure.
Did you mention apartments, or do I assume that apartments would be in with townhouses?
There, we did mention apartments. I did.
I saw it on there.
Yeah, it was apartments,
Oh, I'm waiting on every word that comes out of here.
small apartment buildings, 4 to 8 units.
Okay,
Single, accessory apartments and dwellings and so on. So
There's
we
a,
mentioned it.
this section, it is mentioned.
okay. Thank you.
Could you go to the next one, Amber?
The next thing you want me to share?
The next slide, yeah, the
Yeah,
schematic.
survey graphics, this one?
Yep, survey graphic.
Okay.
So this is to give you an idea of what we're thinking. Now, we're talking about printing 3,000 surveys. We have 2,800 or so known addresses. The known addresses we got from the voter rolls. We looked at a variety of different strategies for getting mailing lists and so on. And we were made to understand that what is most accurate would probably be, particularly because it was just updated, the local voter rolls. That does mean that there might be some people who do not receive an individual letter, but I'll get to how they could address it. So the top piece will be, the survey will be full color, 2-sided, 4 pages long. So it's 11 by 17 sheet. It's folded in half and folded to fit in the envelope. We're asking for 3,000 surveys, plus interior envelopes, plus exterior envelopes. And we move down a little, we can show. So the interior envelope will be what the resident returns their survey to the town through the Bella Associates. And that would be the one in the center there. The bottom one would be the envelope with which we send out the survey, and it probably would have something underneath saying Town of Rush Comprehensive Plan Survey, like the one above it does, but to the mailing list. Now, if somebody is in your home that doesn't vote or did not get a letter with one of these surveys in it, they are instructed through a variety of ways. On the town website, will be in the February paper newsletter. We're going to ask the Residents United and Carol,
Moderator.
the moderator, everybody who has a mailing list, you know, to let people know that this thing is open. So if you do not, and those instructions will include instruction for people who did not receive a survey but want to participate, and they would either call or write, would contact the town clerk's office, and a copy of the survey would be mailed to them in one of these envelopes, so they'd be able to turn it around, send it back. as an alternative to filling out a paper survey, the people, the residents may choose to go online and fill it out electronically. If they go online, their survey that they will have mailed to them will have a serial number. The surveys are going to be serially numbered 1 through 3,000. There's going to be no correlation with addresses. We're not looking to, hold anyone accountable for anything. We just want to make sure there's not duplication. So people will be asked if they do not have the survey number to put in to enter their name and address. So there will be a small portion of those, we think. So we recap for a second. So 3,000, we're going to send out 2,800. We're going to have 200 in town hall to send out to anyone who calls up and said, hey, I want to participate, but did not get a survey. The question of whether or not they live in the town of Rush will be on there. They have to live in the town of Rush to do this. Anything else? All right. Questions?
I hope I'm not jumping the gun,
Yes.
but we don't have a lot of surveys in our history to draw upon.
Right.
And I was wondering if your group, your committee had talked about what else might we include in this survey to give us data, not about our focus, but about something else. For example, if you just had a little box, I would be interested in talking to someone about board positions or politics or something. I was wondering if you had thought about including that in this survey, so a record could be kept of people who might invite a discussion about such matters.
I'm wondering if, like I said, we have a number of spots, ample spots and spots at the back for please use the space below or another sheet of paper to share your suggestions and concerns to help shape the future of Rush. But perhaps we should expand on that description to specify or other issues you would like to know about or
I'm sure your committee could come up with the appropriate wording, but I wondered if it would make sense to accompany your primary survey was one indicating a different interest than on the part of the residents.
Okay, well, I was writing stuff down. You got that? Okay, we will certainly bring that up and formulate some. At this point, I'm thinking attachment to the. Please say anything else you want with some specifics like that you mentioned to let them know it's not just about in response to these questions.
Our building inspector, John, is sitting right to your left, and he knows how many houses have gone in and how many additional residents each of those houses has provoked or promoted. And, it seems to me to get a jump on that next group of 50 people moving into town sooner than later. And I just thought about that as being a possible way to do it.
Right, reaching out to newer people. Reaching out to new people?
Yes,
I think what he's saying, if you add that part to the survey, just a generic whatever, something
Right,
that maybe someone would ask something, put some interest
oh, yeah.
outside of since
No,
they're
I-
new to
I
Rush.
agree.
Is it?
And, we do, it's interesting because we also do ask people to, talk about how long they've lived in Rush as well. So,
Well, there's lots of places to comment on that,
Yeah.
which I think is great.
Right.
Which will probably promote people writing additional things versus just what's asked.
all right, we will certainly get, some language together and get it out to you guys to take a look at it as well. Because we have a couple of days to get this thing together. Okay,
So by Wednesday, you have a timeline, right? By this Wednesday's board meeting, you would like answer from us to approve this. Is that what we're
No,
looking
by
for?
tonight.
By tonight, okay.
Passing on Wednesday because we're getting too busy. So,
Last Wednesday.
Yeah.
So you,
okay,
you need us to approve money for the mailings and everything like that. That's what you're asking.
well, we've gotten approval, I think we've gotten, maybe not, on the funding. And we're gonna talk about the printing costs next, but basically on the survey itself.
Okay,
You know, on just getting at what we needed to get at, or like Jerry pointed out, you know, you missed this thing that might be important to put in there,
okay.
so.
I knew we had approved some of the mailing funds, but I didn't know that that would have been, this would have been. it.
This is, yeah, in fact, it was $4,500 would come out somewhat under, you want to go to?
Sure,
next?
I just want to let you know, I think the survey is great. I think you guys did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
And having done surveys in the past and you'll open it up and you go, this one, at least I think will really intrigue and hopefully get people to answer it, because the questions are very directed towards Rush residents. It's not a generic, you guys did a great job.
And it's interesting, I mean, going back, you know, 1991, 2010, 2012, so all the different issues and things that have come up in the town, very much similar, you know, you see the similar kind of questions that were asked then, and, you know, a lot of that is reflected in what we're talking about now, plus some. You know. So,
You want the printing costs?
yeah, sure.
I think it flows well. When I read through the questions, like the layout of it is easy to follow, easy to check off. It's kind of inviting.
Right.
And I think that's what they want to know, basically, like, is it look and feel right? Ask the right kind of questions so that they can move forward and get this out. We can keep this going.
And the demographics, I think, is really important because, you know, some of us aren't going to be around forever. And others will be in Rush a lot longer than others.
Right.
So I think it's really important. It'll be interesting to see what that demographic answers are.
Yeah, one thing that's always bothered me taking surveys is I always seem to say, what the heck do they want? What do they mean? And I kept trying to catch on that and I couldn't.
Well, we spent a lot of time trying to get rid of those type of things because it was so easy to do, you know, you put down and says, it sounds like what you want to do.
Exactly.
That's not giving the choice to people. It's back out, expand on it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was a challenge. It's a lot of, we spent a lot of time talking about those specific things. Anyway, the printing cost, again, as I said, 17 by 11 by 17, folded in half. It's about $1,000, $991 to print the surveys. The outside envelopes, the black ink one side, $400 to print those. Same with the smaller envelopes in which the survey will be returned. We're not, okay, so one of the issues we had earlier on was, you know, we were wondering, should we put postage on the return envelope? And we decided against it for a number of reasons. One is we did anticipate a number of people, a significant number, doing this electronically. And we just thought that it would be, you know, unless we had something that could, a postage paid thing that you only paid if it was used, it was just too complicated. And then the printer said, you know, I really don't think asking somebody to put on a stamp is unreasonable. You know, I guess not. I would have no problem with that. But so there was no return postage. People again could do it electronically for free, or they could spend the money and put a stamp on it, mail it in. So the cost associated with the mail prep, folding and stuffing, 15 cents each, postage. Postage is an estimate, but we think it's pretty good estimate, 57 cents per piece. And the turnaround time would be 5 to 7 business days plus 3 to 5 by the time we get it all done, so. 10 to 12 days. It should be in the mail and in time to give residents a good month to respond. And we came in less than 4,500. We originally tried to get down lower, but people didn't want to take the color out entirely, so we put a little back in there. So that is all I have. Do you have anything to add? Do you have questions for any of us? All of us?
Well, I'll ask again, what do you need from us tonight?
We need approval to send out the surveys. We'll make the one change, that comment section, to identify that this may not, can go beyond the issues identified in here. And can include any suggestions you have would be good. In terms of what other types of things it might include.
Could you just put in at that point, ask for suggestions from the people? Of maybe ideas that they would like discussed,
It's discussed as part of the,
comprehensive plan?
Yeah.
Just add in there, just say, okay, if there's anything you thought we missed,
please let us know.
let us know
Please
here.
Let us know here.
And then as you go through them, if there's something that you see, or a number of things that you see a bunch of that people have interest in, then
Is there
then
anything
that's something
that
to
you
address
think
there.
we missed regardless of whether or not we attempted to touch on it?
Yeah. That's what I would put in. I think, I don't know what you guys think.
Sounds good.
That's generic enough.
Okay, we could do that. We'll get it out right away. Yes. Take a look at it and let us know.
So do we need a resolution?
We need one to accept the survey and then one to pay for the mail.
Yes, sir.
We need, I was just gonna respond to Dan. I don't know if we need a resolution to add another different inquiry, but we
No.
certainly need a resolution to approve the expenditure.
These, yeah, and. you know,
And
I
the,
don't know.
and the wording, if you, do you
Mhm.
like the look and feel of the survey?
I do.
Absolutely, very
My
much.
thought is
Okay.
that
I do.
Should not go out without going to the town board. Yeah.
We appreciate that.
So, wanted to make sure that you guys took a look at it. Thought it was reasonable.
Well, I think we've all waited a long time for the comprehensive plan process to get into the arena of finding out what it is the residents want.
Right.
I think we all have a good idea of the last 5 people we talked to. But what about the other 500 we haven't talked to? So I'm anxious to get this going. And yeah, the cost is exorbitant. But I think it's gonna provide us with the data we need to go forth into the future. So I'm very much in favor of saying, yes, do it. That's my opinion.
Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the survey as prepared by Labella Associates and the Comprehensive Plan Committee as is currently written.
I'll second it. Go ahead.
Councilperson Corbin,
Aye.
Councilperson Chase.
Aye.
Councilperson Morale,
Aye.
Supervisor Cusie,
Aye.
And don't forget
Councilperson.
Aye.
Wolliver.
Wolliver.
And I will make a motion to approve expending $3,043 to cover the cost of printing. Do we know who's gonna be doing that?
Yeah. Any rain?
By Penny Lane, Penny Saver, Avon, New York.
Any rain? Slash, any say.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Councilperson Corbin,
Aye.
Councilperson Chase,
Aye.
Councilperson Morale,
Aye.
Councilperson Wolliver,
Aye.
Supervisor Cusie.
Aye. Thank you very much. I look forward to it. We all do. Next on our agenda for the evening is a proposed resolution. We've got an opportunity to write some grants for the next for the 1911 house. And is Sue Me with us?
Yes, she is. I will find her for us.
I'm here.
Hi, Sue.
Hello.
Who found Sue?
She didn't go far.
Would you like to make any opening comments about this?
Okay, this is a resolution that our attorney has revised, seeking authorization for the town to expend funds, matching funds for the New York State Council on the Arts grant that we are applying for. If you're applying for anything over $50,000, matching funds are required. So the money that we are requesting for the project is a total of $350,000, and we base that on the rental income that would be non-taxpayer dollars that the town collected as, you know, net proceeds from renting the 1911 house for all of those years. It's actually more than the 175, but the town has already paid for a new roof and the fees to Barrow for the work that they've done for us already. So it seems like it works out to a $175,000 balance. And that's what we're requesting from the town. If we get the grant, that would be their matching funds portion. And the grant is due the submission is due Thursday, this Thursday, the 12th at 4 p.m. I'd really like to get it in before Thursday because I have a great fear of something failing and not being able to upload all of the many, many documents we need to upload for the application. So really trying to get that done Tuesday or at the very latest Wednesday. So the resolution is part of what's required for the grant submission, showing that the funds are available.
Sue, you were given some time ago a total of rental income minus expenses, is that correct?
Yes.
And I have asked our new finance person to audit that record to make sure that we aren't missing the mark on that grant opportunity. I want to make sure that that number is as close as we can get to the funds produced by renting that particular building. And I asked Janet to try to get through that by tomorrow. So that will be available and it won't be too different than what you're working with now.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Any other comments from the board?
No, given that they will be, they need to apply. And believe me, with technology, we all know it doesn't always work perfect, so you don't want to wait till the last minute. And this resolution that we have in front of us, if they don't get the grant, then this is just tied to that grant is my understanding. So I am in favor of moving forward with it unless there's more discussion.
No,
I'm anxious to get the thing in,
The grant in.
grant,
Also,
see where it goes.
Dan, our microphones are great, but we
Got a
have,
spot.
I talk a little louder towards
You
it.
have to speak into them.
No, you actually don't. You can just kind of just talk louder or speak, but yeah, you'll hear yourself up in the ceiling now.
So awards are supposed to be announced the beginning of April for this grant. So it'll go fairly quickly, before and we'll have an answer one way or the other.
I'm in favor of moving forward with this. Especially since we have the funds to be confirmed, but we have, it's in our funds. So it's, we need to put money back into that house regardless. We have to figure something out.
I should say that based on several discussions with Sue, this won't be the only grant that we pursue. This grant has specifications which we have to write to the application. In addition to that, there are other occasional grants that Councilperson Morelli knows about that are almost hitting us once or twice a week. And it is the plan of the 1911 committee to pursue those grants as they are made available. And if we can comply with the requirements for applying. Are you agreeing, Sue?
Oh, yes, I am. And I think that's a good plan, because even if we are selected, there's a possibility that they may not award us for the full amount we're requesting. So it's a starting point and we'll see where it goes. But yeah, I think we definitely have to continue considering other grant applications as well.
Perfect.
Do we have a resolution prepared?
Yes, we do.
And I'll bet I know he has it.
Well, Councilman Bolivar's been involved with this for a long time. You can read it, or I can read it, or someone else can.
I'm gonna take a wild guess to say this is resolution number 1. 2000.
Could be.
I move that whereas the town of Rush has entered into a lease subject to permissive referendum with the Rush Historical Society, RHS, as an all-volunteer 501c3 nonprofit organization for the structure at 1911 Rush Scottsville Road, commonly referred to as the 1911 Corner House, located on the town of Rush campus. And whereas the town of Rush, together with the town historian and the Rush RHS Board of Directors, conducted a feasibility study, developed a master plan, and agreed on a conceptual design to rehabilitate and repurpose the town's asset for the benefit of the current and future residents of the town of Rush. And whereas the 1911 Corner House is in need of significant rehabilitation and renovation in order to render it suitable for the town of Rush, or for the town and the RHS for its use, and for the storage of the town historical artifacts, and to provide a more attractive, engaging, and accessible location for residents and visitors to enjoy exhibits and participate in events sponsored by the town and the RHS. And whereas the estimate for the total rehabilitation of the interior and exterior of the structure and grounds based on the current conceptual drawings is approximately $350,000. And whereas the Rush Historical Society has developed a development plan that is underway to seek grant and funds to support the aforementioned costs to rehabilitate the property. And the town board recognizes the opportunity and commitment to support this development effort by providing matching funds, paying for expenditures not covered by grants, and providing in-kind contributions by providing staff time and expertise as needed to provide technical, administrative, and clerical support. Now, therefore, be it resolved that provided the RHS is successful in obtaining the aforementioned grant funding for the 1911 Corner House, the town is willing to commit to provide matching funds up to the total of $175,000 towards the renovation costs of the 1911 house for the aforementioned scope and purpose. And be it further resolved that the above reference commitment and the expenditures and furtherance thereof shall be subject to the town procurement policies, New York State General Municipal Law, and other grant under requirements. Such expenditures shall be approved. Such expenditures shall be approval.
You have that?
further subject to the town funding availability based on the budget allocation and approval,
That's okay. It's not his fault, no.
approval and expenditures for specific work to be performed shall be subject to town approval of specific construction plans and proposals as may be submitted by the RHS at such future time that such work is proposed to be done. And be it further. I, the undersigned town clerk, therefore certify the foregoing is the text of a resolution adopted by the Rush Town Board at a meeting on Monday, January 9th, 2023, which was duly called in accordance with public officers law, and that the necessary quorum was present, and that such resolution has not been modified, amended, or repealed, and remains in full effect and on the date thereof.
I'll second that.
Councilperson Corbin,
Aye.
Councilperson Chase,
Aye.
Councilperson Morales,
Aye.
Councilperson Wolliver,
Aye.
Supervisor Cusie.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Sue, very
Good
much.
luck getting the grant in.
Thanks. I just have one question. Will it be possible for me to get a copy? Because this gets signed or approved, or I don't know if it gets stamped, but a copy that I could have electronically tomorrow?
It should be available to you once it's signed, and that should be available tomorrow.
Terrific.
That's got to be part of the grant application.
Yes, it does. So I can pick up a print copy if that's easier, or have one emailed to me. I'll be in the town hall tomorrow morning anyway, so,
Don't stop in and see me.
okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we can now move on to some continued discussions. The next items to discuss have been worked on by most of us, but especially by Dan and John. And it's time we get them out of the way so that we can go on to other business. But this discussion must take place so that we can get through the end of the matter and have it adopted as law. So John, are you prepared to lead off on this?
If it's item number one.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, thank you. This whole activity started 2.5 years ago when I was employed by the town. I was asked to make a determination if a residential property could construct an accessory structure.
That way
No,
they-
I looked
that
at
way
Mel
they-
Torme. If that person could construct an accessory structure on a residential property that didn't have a primary structure already in place, a residence. And seeking counsel at the time, I was told that the town used 2 code clauses. And that's on the first handout that I gave you this evening. Those 2 clauses, and I'm not, I've had discussions with Attorney Marks. And I'm still not totally comfortable using these 2 clauses. And the first one is 120-5. It's a definition of an accessory building or an accessory structure, and it's called a structure detached from and subordinate to a principal building on the same lot, the use of which is customarily incidental to the principal building or use. And this is a definition that's coming from Code Section 120-5, which is the definitions. And a lot of the people that look up the code don't look at the definitions. They go right to the residential descriptions of the property. So it's obscure. The second one that I was told to use was 120-7, and this is R20 residential districts. And then there's a note that in 120-8 that R30 and RR5 have the same requirements as R20. And A5 says that accessory uses are permitted, provided all of the following conditions are met. Item C was the use shall be clearly incidental and secondary to the use of the dwelling for residential purposes. And the concern that I've got there, this subsection refers to a use and not a building. So I'm using the definition of a building and a clause that talks about accessory uses as opposed to accessory structures. And I think there's enough of a difference there that I'm not totally comfortable with that. So in talking with Attorney Marks, you know, we said we could continue to do that, but I also think that we should strengthen that so that I'm not having people look all over the code or me having to provide the two. One thing I thought that we could do, and that's a suggestion I'm listing there, is add a sentence to code section 120-7A3 that reads, accessory structures are only allowed if a residence is already established at the property. Now, just hold that aside for a minute, because this whole issue morphed over the last month as I got the application for the gentleman down at 8003 East River Road, who wants to put in an apiary. He wants to put in a small building. He wants to put in an electric fence. So just hold this thought for a minute. The other item that I asked you folks to consider is there are several professional associations, most notably the American Planning Association, that consider fences to be structures. And I gave a little bit of language there. I don't know if that's something that the town wants to even delve into, or if we leave our definition of fences as it is. So if you could switch from that handout to the second one that I gave you, that is more specific to Mr. Mellon's application to put in the fence, and he's going to be coming in with some other improvements. And the first one, what I gave you here is items 1, 2, and 3, and 4, actually, of the fence permit application. That's the second sheet down from this. And if you go through that, I've listed on the application items 1, 2, and 3. And as I was looking through these with the changes that the board has already made to make the code more agriculturally friendly, items 1 and 2 on that, I don't have a problem issuing this gentleman a building permit for the fence that he'd like to put up. The only thing he does put in there, aside from code sections, is he talks about best agricultural practices for protecting apiaries against bear and common practices for protecting orchards from deer damage. I'm not going to contest anything he says about best agricultural practices. It's not in my wheelhouse. I don't need to do it, but if you get past, there's a map 2 or 3 sheets down that show what he wants to do with this property. And if anybody's looking for a reference, this is almost directly across from Woodruff Road. And the property to the north of this is where that uncompleted pole barn is that I stopped a year ago using these 2 clauses. So he's right next to that. And then the next sheet down, he has an overhead view of it. And then the sheet after that, I've got listed as number 3. Don't pay any attention to that. But if you go to the sheet directly underneath that, we've got a definition that we approved for a non-commercial farm. And the last sentence of that definition of a non-commercial farm states that any such farm may include a dwelling and accessory buildings, structures, and equipment necessary for the operation of the farm. So if you take my first question, where do I use these 2 clauses to preclude somebody from putting an accessory structure on a residential lot without a dwelling? If that person comes in and says they're a farm, whether commercial or non-commercial, this non-commercial farm definition is telling them they can basically build whatever they want on that piece of property as long as it's they're primarily farming. So that kind of blows my first suggestion out of the water, because we're going to have kind of conflicting definitions of what we're going to allow. And This new part here, Robert, is something you and I haven't had time to talk about yet. But again, it's something that I think we should just reconcile to make sure that, our code is very specific as to what we're going to allow, for an accessory structure on a property.
But we really can't have an accessory structure without a primary structure.
Well, that's what I've been enforcing, but if somebody comes in and says they're a non-commercial farmer. If he's got a truck patch on there. He technically could say he's a non-commercial farmer. And I'm gonna put up a pole barn, or I'm gonna put up an Amish shed, something to that effect. Without having a dwelling on it, which we've been trying to enforce with those clauses.
So here's my question to everybody, I guess, and I'm looking through this. And I guess I don't really see where it sticks out that it says you can't have a building. I mean, where does it, like, if I was reading this, where does it say that if I had a piece of land that you definitely can't put up? And I'm not, I just couldn't find.
And again, what I've been told, or what I was told to enforce. Was this on the first handout, the first sheet, that 120-5. B, accessory buildings and accessory structures. It's detached from and subordinate to the principal building. On the same lot, which is inferring a residence because it's a residential zoning district.
But where does it say that you can't have a building? If, like, so to the point, like Dan just said, where does it say you can't? If you just put a building there, it's not an accessory building. Where does it say you can't? I understand they're giving you but the definition of an accessory building is if there's a primary residence there. Where does it say that people can't?
Well, welcome to my world, and I'll turn it over to the attorney.
Okay, but I'm just curious. That's what I was trying to figure out, like, where does it say that you can't do it? And I don't see that you can't.
Well, and again, if you use that. Accessory use, where it talked about it had to be subordinate to the dwelling, but again, that's a use and not a structure. So that's where I have some issue.
And before Robert gives us advice, I'd like to call your attention to at least 2 such cases that I know of that I can think of. One is on Rush Henrietta Town Line Road. Krenzers have a barn there with there's no primary dwelling. The same is true on Woodruff Road, where there's a barn owned by the financial guru out of Rochester.
That's
Yeah,
allowed because.
That's allowed. It's a club. That was a loophole in that I believe you
Yeah.
found.
Yeah.
That is allowed because it's a club use, so they
Or was
can
that
have
Ronnie Pearl's old property?
Yes, yes.
when they subdivided it.
He was trying to sell. He had a buyer for the house. He had a buyer for the barn. But
That'd be a
he
hair
couldn't,
situation. That's
couldn't
different.
separate it.
Gary Coppers found that, and I think with Dan on the zoning board when we were on. So it's in the code. If it's for a club use, then you don't
You have
need
to
a
list
primary
hours
structure.
and have
Right.
at least a limited membership.
Right.
and-
Okay, Robert.
All right,
Okay,
Robert,
so let me
we're
start,
ready.
before we really, I give you sort of broad overstrokes. So the non-commercial farming definition that you're citing, and I believe the board is aware of this, that's 52 and 58 hasn't been passed yet. So that language isn't in the code yet. It's obviously maybe in the code, this month, but currently isn't there, just so that have that background. But to answer your question, so, and this John, these handouts are great, John. 3 pages in, you're looking at 120-7 R20 residential district.
Are you on the 120-5 one?
And
The
Okay,
first handout,
third page?
3rd page.
Third page. Okay, chapter
So
2020.
this is John's problem. John says, if someone comes to him and says, John, I have a property in an R20 district and I would like to put on a barn or a shed. John looks at this and says, okay, what are the permitted uses of someone in this district? And he says, okay, it's a one family dwelling, it's not that, public library, etc. It's not that. Accessory uses of structures and accessory structures customarily incident to any uses permitted above. It's not that, because it's not, if it's an accessory structure, it's not customarily incident to a use permitted above. Because you need a use permitted above. Does that make sense? You need a dwelling. And then and here's the crux of it. Number 4, customary farming activities on premises which are primarily agricultural in use. And keep in mind, we changed four. Forms
We
four is
changed
now
four.
got a lot of farm stand stuff in it too. But just that first sentence is still intact. Customary farming activities on premises which are primarily agricultural in use. And when John and I talked, I said, John, you could read that to say customary farming activities and structures. Or you could read that to say customary farming activities, doesn't say structures. Then you have to look other places in the code, and that's when you look at that non-commercial farming definition. Say, let's see, the intent here is when we say customary farming activities, are we saying customary farming structures or not? But generally speaking, right, and then as John said, 5 accessory uses, talking about uses. Generally speaking, what he's looking at is saying, putting farming aside. It means that I want to put up a barn because I want to house my equipment in there. It's not a permitted use, right? It's not one of these 5 permitted uses here on this R20 residential district. So,
Is it prohibited?
well, it's
Because it's not
permitted.
permitted, it's prohibited?
Yes, if it's not specifically written in it.
It's not specifically
Yep.
written in, it's prohibited.
I think we're in good shape for agricultural, but if you get the non-agricultural use. You know, what do we use to say?
Well, and to John's point, I do think you could, I think it is worth the board considering for agricultural use, adding at least some clarification language, because I mean, it's been difficult for John, as he said, because customary farming activities, okay, does that mean, what about customary farming structures? How do you determine, is this a structure that is for farming, or is it hunting, and the list goes on, so there's definitely some consideration there is to just make that clear so that if John isn't the building inspector and another building inspector comes in and says, hey, that says farming activities, because when John and I first talked, he read it and said, I don't think that's permitted. And I said, well, I can't say you're wrong, right? There's 2 interpretations here. It's not my job to interpret the code, it's your job. And if you came to me and said, it doesn't say customary farming structures, I would probably say, okay, I see where you're coming from. So I think that's something for the board to consider for farming in particular, as a general accessory structure issue. That's the problem that John is facing. It doesn't permit customary or doesn't permit accessory structures as a permitted use.
But it
Fencing is a
does-
different.
But it does for farming, it does right now. For farming, we're covered in there.
Well,
But and like,
We have to pass that law.
well, I
first.
understand that, but I mean, the way that it's written. The stuff that we worked through
Yes.
last spring, summer, or whatever,
Mhm.
the way that it's written now, that is,
And that's the
Covered.
second. Those came.
Right.
Yes.
Proposed local laws.
yes, yep, and then, yeah, and
Farming non-commercial.
And
Yeah.
for Mr. Mellon at 8003, I'm okay. That's the third. He wants to power this electric fence with a homemade solar type device.
Yeah.
I have a little X there. I'll get some, information from him about what that is.
right,
I can treat that as a tier 2 solar installation, just, handle that, but,
we're gonna have to talk about that.
this,
too.
well, this,
That's a separate issue.
yeah, this application kind of tied into what I've been fighting with.
Yeah.
And this gentleman, he's quoting code and, he's looking for an answer. He needs to get beehives and trees planted by March, so.
For particular for that application, it's also worth noting in this handout, if you go to the next page.
The one we're just looking at.
Or you were just looking
Okay.
at. B, use permitted upon special issuance of a special permit by the planning board. Number 4, under B, says horticultural nurseries.
Mhm.
You'll remember we deleted that, so it's no longer a specially permitted use, it's a permitted use now.
Right. Okay.
So he doesn't need a special use permit for that. So
And-
what you're looking at here is not the updated
Updated.
version of it, because that E-code doesn't have the updated version on it.
I thought there was one other thing, but
Yeah, we got rid of,
seasonal farm stands and.
that's right, yeah,
Yep.
that's somewhere else.
And then I had another question on that after we got digging into this more. I think we missed one. But I don't know if we need to tackle that right now.
It's up to you. You can have one.
Hey, wait a minute, fix my issue.
We know, well, that's why I said.
But does that give you a broad sort of overview of what we're talking about?
So if. I won't say if, when we pass the fences and the commercial and non-commercial farm, which hopefully will be at the next meeting. Will that give the building inspector the answer he needs to give to this landowner.
For this individual,
For
I'm
this.
comfortable. It's going to be the application I get for the property next door where that gentleman wants to put up a pole barn. It's not an agricultural use,
Right,
but it's an accessory structure.
right.
Ag, I'm okay with, non-ag.
I still think it's worth, if the board goes into 120-7 and deals with accessory structures generally. I think it's worth adding an A4 customary farming activities and structures if that's what the board intends. Meaning, if currently the non-commercial farms, I think is handling that definition, is handling it for you.
Mhm.
But ideally, it's in accordance with, it lines up with what we're writing in 120-7.
And the other thing we need to do is, I know the planning board is looking at accessory uses, accessory structures. I think they should be read in so that, you know, there's not a conflict.
I
that,
agree.
You know, I don't want to do something that is going to cause angst elsewhere, so.
So could I ask the board a question then? I mean. How do you feel about accessory structures on for me personally, if somebody came and said, I just bought this plot of land, whether it's 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 acres. But I bought it, it's mine, and maybe I want to hunt deer there. And, or whatever, maybe I just want to ride four-wheelers there. But maybe I don't have a truck and trailer, or maybe I just don't feel like trucking, but I have an ATV that I want to store in a building on this property I just bought. The way it sits right now, that's not permitted. In my opinion, I don't have a problem with letting somebody have a building like that on a property without a structure on it. That's my opinion. I don't know how anyone else feels. Maybe there's more to talk about it, but in my opinion, I don't see a problem with somebody having a piece of land and putting a building on it to keep stuff to help maintain or to enjoy that property. I don't see an issue with it.
I think the problem with it is if there isn't a primary structure and you're not there regularly. That the property's, the structure is gonna get run down and not maintained. I think that's the problem. That's why it's not allowed.
That's been the historical
That's
reason
the-
why we have
The
that.
fear,
That, you know, and vandalism, and, you know, a million things. If there's not a primary structure where you're there to supervise it.
but to that point,
I
a
think-
hunting cabin is a permitted structure with a special permit. So what's the difference on that? That's not a primary residence.
You can also look at the size of the property, that lot that's directly next door to this. It's a smaller residential lot. It's not 20 acres. And if somebody puts up a 20 by 20 barn, that becomes a fairly substantial structure in a residential neighborhood. It's not residential.
I remember long before you became interested in such issues that I was told, because I didn't understand it. I was told that it was put into the code because of the vandalism consideration. You're not there to maintain the property. Properties that have a structure for housing snowmobiles, whatever, tend not to get maintained. The ground around them tends not to get maintained. And the town was trying to prevent those situations from occurring. I have never felt that we should be as restrictive with agricultural operations. I think that if a farmer has a need to put a shed on these 40 acres over here, let them put it up there without having a primary structure. I think for other uses and that qualified farming uses, I don't think we should allow it because I think it'll produce a uptick in the number of people who want to put accessory sheds on a piece of property they own, to house a snowmobile, to house a boat, to house whatever,
It could be for all kinds of storage reasons that you would find.
anything.
I think it's definitely for discussion, we get planning board input.
Yeah,
I'd like to hear the history, maybe they have more history potentially, but I definitely want to get 52 and 58 on the books.
Yes.
Yeah,
Please. And make sure that what John has is gonna be okay for what you need to do to move forward with that. But, I think with our new planning board coming in and that can be something we can give to them to talk about. Maybe we can put our own ideas down on ourselves and compile it together and say,
I like that.
here's a bunch of different ideas. Don't have to put names on them, but here's the history, here's what if this, what if that, and get additional input.
And if you'd like, I can put a note out once you've got the planning board established. To the town board, the planning board, the attorneys, and say, okay, here's the issue for non-agricultural properties.
Mhm.
We have this situation. How do we want to go through this?
Are you okay with that, Dan?
No, yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, I don't have any problem. That's just my personal feeling. And I know, so if I was a non-farmer and I came to Rush and I was like, it's beautiful here. I want to buy a piece of land and I want to use it to hunt or take my kids out and ride our four-wheelers around or whatever the case is. But you know what? I live up in the city somewhere. I don't have a pickup truck. I don't have a trailer. But I have enough money to buy this land and go out and enjoy it. And I want to be able to store my equipment on that property. Then I would.
And I see that, but I also see the other side of,
I do too.
I bought and built my
favorite
house
thing-
right next to this 1 acre parcel that has a stop work order on it because the building is falling down and it's, no residence is being
Right.
used.
So that maybe something to consider would maybe that for something like that, maybe you would have a lot size restriction
And maybe
or,
we can do
you know,
some
so it's
benchmarking with
just-
other
with other towns. I'm
agricultural
just,
towns, yeah.
yeah, or maybe. Maybe it's a case where for something like that, I mean, we already have hunting camps as a permitted use with a specialty use permit. Maybe that would be something, and a building could be put on a land without a primary residence if it was approved with a specialty use permit. Maybe that's an approach we could take. I mean, it's already kind of there for the hunting cabin, so why not add that language
Yeah.
into that and go that way with it, and
Yeah.
then that would kind of relieve
There's a lot of
John.
different ways to do this.
Yep.
so if something is approved
So it
with
has
a
to be good
special
language.
permit,
Right,
So we don't.
if it falls out of use that was granted under that permit, it loses that status, is that correct? How does that work?
So if something's already built and it falls to disrepair, you're saying?
Well,
Under special.
say there's something that is granted that's
If-
non-farming,
if-
non-farming and it's allowable under a special permit.
Scott and I were just talking about this the other day, actually. So special use permits can be difficult to revoke. You have to normally, and I have to look at specifically at our town code, but what I've seen in other municipalities is you have to have like a public hearing on why this needs to be revoked. Either they've not satisfied a condition or they're no longer using it properly. That's what I've seen in other places, but Scott, I know that Scott and I have talked about that because he was having the same question with how are these being released? And I don't know what prompted that. I think he's been looking at the code a lot, so.
The extreme example too is the situation we found up on Rush Lima Road last summer where you had an abandoned house, you had an abandoned barn, and they were using it to grow marijuana inside the barn. With a very extensive operation that had been, they were robbing power from National Grid and, had a huge setup inside that barn. So, I mean, that's the extreme.
And generally speaking, it's a code enforcement issue, right? So someone would make a complaint, code enforcement officer would do a notice of violation.
Right,
If it wasn't corrected, then you'd have that hearing in front of the town board to revoke that.
okay.
That's how the process would work.
I'll put that note out after the organization. Get everything straight. Hopefully we can get-
Yeah, I think we want to move forward and address this quickly. Let's,
yeah, I think however we can try and make John's job more. So there's not so much guesswork, then
And anyone moving forward, but it's also important to have the past history because there's been precedent set. And we want to make sure that we're being
It-
fair
it-
across the board.
So it's just going back to, if it was me and I had that, I'd be like, okay, well, I'm putting up this hunting cabin that looks like a shed. Can I get a specialty use permit to do that?
You know, you come in and you plant a 1/4 acre of tomato. Now it's agricultural,
did.
non-commercial, you can put up whatever you want.
Right, or you can grow marijuana.
Oh, you can.
Right, no, but
Not in the Finger Lake shop.
You can only have 10 plants per household. Some that-
there is a metric. Yes, you're right.
One other question. I
No
think you
comment.
Raised, was whether- you raised on whether a fence was a structure.
Oh,
So a fence is a structure, but because a fence falls under its own section of the town code, the specific provisions in there are going to control over the general provisions. So even though generally speaking, for instance, you know, the R20 doesn't say fences or, you know, accessory uses of fences are not prohibited or are prohibited. If you look at the fence code itself, it doesn't have a requirement of a principal dwelling, or it just requires a, you know, it just requires a fence permit, right? And because the same reason is why it doesn't need a site plan like that. because of-
According
It
to
doesn't
Ag
actually
and Markets law, for commercial farming operations, fences are considered equipment and not a structure under Ag and Markets.
Under ag and markets, it's interesting. Yeah, the conservative definition is if you stick it, if it's in the ground, it's structural. So, but either way, it's covered by its own code. So whatever's in that code is what applies for.
so are we good with that? Can we move to 52 and 58?
Yeah.
All right.
I've got my
After
answer.
after I asked Dan a question, just out of curiosity. Are large farms required to declare whether they're commercial or not?
It's, I mean, I guess, what do you mean? Are they required to like? Or, so I want to. Yes, I mean, yeah, so what we based our commercial farm definition off of was the dollar amount that makes you eligible for your ag tax exemption. That's where we based our commercial
Right.
farm off of. That dollar amount.
The
Of your
10,000.
gross annual income, if you are
Right.
getting over $10,000 an acre, that qualifies you for your ag tax exemption. So that's where we set that benchmark to say, okay, that's, so, I mean, I guess. Like we sign off, if you went to somebody and said, all right, you signed off on your ag exempt form. Who's farming your property? And they would say, well, Chase Farms is farming our property. Then you could ask for our tax ID number that we have, and we could provide that and say, yep, we are a viable farm. We have our own, we have a tax ID number. We make more than $10,000 a year. That's how you would solidify that. The other thing that I've seen, there's other parts of it, some of it is, you know, you have to have a minimum farm, a minimum of 7 acres, or have a minimum of 7 acres. There's a metric like that to determine whether you would be a legitimate farm. I guess we didn't go that acreage route, but I don't think that most farms, 7 acres is not a huge amount for most
So
farms.
they would have to rely on the 10,000.
Yeah, and that's
Well,
why
that's what we have. in
Because-
ours.
Honestly,
there is.
Acreage for certain.
Correct, yep, some of them can be a little bit smaller and you could hit that $10,000 metric on a smaller parcel depending on what you're growing.
exactly, like mushrooms.
Yep, mushrooms or anything like that, yep. Yep, or a greenhouse for that matter,
Yes,
a greenhouse.
Right.
You could have, I mean, an acre of greenhouses.
right. So
Or
it's
not
not
even
just
a
grow
small
crops that you'd
Right,
need.
yep, so there's other metrics and so we went with that dollar amount that qualifies you for your ag tax exemption through New York State, so.
Thank you.
So, Robert sent us the local law for chapter 52 and 58, clean copy. We got an email just a short while ago. You might not have had a chance to look at it yet, but it's
Oh.
the same one we had before, just the clean version copy.
Yeah.
And it has the farm, commercial, farm, non-commercial definitions. Right to undertake agricultural practices. I printed it off. So,
Okay,
approval permit is prohibited fences and materials, height limitations, security fences. So, Robert, this is good to go. We've satisfied the public hearing. We've got the Monroe County referral.
Yep.
So all we have to do is add this to a next agenda to pass. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay,
All right.
We need a motion to do that, or do we just notify?
Wait, just
the
get
town
it
clerk?
on the agenda.
Jerry's.
is there a time element here, Robert, or could we do it at
The second.
Wednesday night's meeting?
You could do it, yeah. So if you had time in your organization, absolutely.
We'll consider that.
Or we wait till,
Or
if,
the
as
next-
long as John's okay, yeah, why don't we do it at the second meeting since it's not on the agenda
Okay, Big
that was
John,
posted?
if Big John would like that, that's what we'll.
What I've got is this gentleman who wants his, fence,
Now,
and I need this in place.
Okay, we're gonna do it Wednesday. We're gonna add it, we're gonna add
Ask
it.
you a question though? And I'm not trying to throw us into the weeds here by any means.
Oh, boy.
Um,
But we're going to.
no, I don't think it will. I don't think it will. As the code sits right now. Why couldn't you give them the fence permit? I know it says it's, the electrical fences are prohibited, but it also says unless it's for an agricultural use, primarily an agricultural. So I think that either with the old one or this one,
I prefer to have.
okay, I'm just, it was open-ended and that's why we started looking into this more, but I figured, well, I think, would he be protected if someone was like, why did you do that? You could say, well, it was an agricultural use, he was protecting beehives. I mean,
He said at the beginning of the meeting, it's not his job to enforce the code, it's mine.
but he could tell you,
No,
No, he won't.
no, not tell you, but he could give his opinion on whether or not that would be,
Yeah.
that you would be protected. He's not telling you to do what to do, but he could advise and say, well, it is sufficient to allow that, I guess.
John could issue a fence permit if he determined that it was primarily agricultural use.
As the way the code sits currently.
Well, that's what it says. So, you know, the code says you cannot build an electric fence unless it's primarily agricultural use. If John determined, hey, this is primarily agricultural use, then he could issue that fence permit. It's up to him how he determines primarily agricultural use.
If the agenda is very busy for Wednesday night, I'll do it that way. That's your call. Sure.
I have no problem doing it Wednesday. I don't know if anybody else,
no, I'd rather get it over. We can add it before the,
before we get into the
under the old,
organization.
How
right.
long will it take? We'd have to.
Well, we have it.
As long as it
under,
takes-
yeah, right.
Yeah, as long as
Very
it takes to
short.
read the resolution, right?
Important to get it done.
Well,
That's
we
it.
Had it kicking around for
6 months.
I agree.
I agree.
Okay.
We'll proceed in that direction. Okay. Moving on to 52 and 58 fences for commercial farms,
That we're done with,
and that is off the agenda.
correct.
And the next one is setbacks,
So here's.
which we seem to have been kicking around for. Ever.
Here's what was going through my head. Given we didn't realize how we got here on 52 and 58 until we really started asking questions and realizing where things stood. I would like if either we each take something that we think is out there that we haven't finished, because we have nothing in front of us.
But I think this is, for right now, for as far as setbacks go, as far as I remember, and anybody can step in and correct me. if
No,
we're wrong.
I remember, but we were going to put it all together, set back every outside storage, we were going to put it all, so we wouldn't have to have a public hearing there, a public hearing there, we were going to put everything together. That's how I remember, if I don't have it right, correct me. And that way we can each take something that we think is supposed to have been continued to work on and bring it together and put it all together for one public hearing with all the different part,
I
setbacks,
think
outside
I think
storage.
we're setting us up for a really lengthy public hearing at some point if we do a bunch of stuff all at once.
All at
I
once.
agree.
Okay, all right.
That's what I was just gonna chime in on.
If you get a couple hot button
Yeah.
things on one thing,
Well,
I think you could really be setting yourself up for a pretty lengthy.
keep in mind, there are different reasons for setbacks with agriculture.
Yeah, but we didn't.
Right, this
we
wasn't
didn't even get
agriculture.
into that. I mean, we just
No.
went,
Yeah,
it was
Yeah.
based off
Yeah.
that recommendation
Yeah.
that Mark David gave that said, hey, listen, we could make this pretty simple. The town
Make
can
it all
set
100.
all their, they can set their own
Right. And we
setbacks.
talked about
It-
limited industrial and
All
commercial.
true.
But that's why I'm saying we're sitting here rehashing this, right? And we,
Right.
right, we could continue rehashing, but we don't have anything in front of us to say, yep, this is what we said, this is what we were working on.
Well, here's. And like I said, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is going off of my memory. Basically, what we did was for R20. In state and county roads, the setback was 110 feet. In that same zone. On town roads was 100 feet, and we decided, why don't we make it all 100 feet?
Yep.
The only thing that we did not change was the 140-foot setback in the commercial and limited industrial. Was the only thing we didn't change.
That's my
And
recollection.
Robert said, that's an easy fix. We can get that done.
So I sent that local law package to you in June.
Yeah.
Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
So,
We have, but we just don't have it sitting in front of us. But no, I agree, it's ready to go.
so if you have it, Robert, if you wouldn't mind,
Forward that.
three
Move
forward that.
forward and let's
then-
get that on the second.
Yeah, we'll get it on the
Well,
second.
You have to set a public
So we
hearing.
can set the public hearing. Can we do that at the end of the organizational meeting? Or can we do that tonight? I think we need Pam,
No, we can't. Yeah, we have to do it a regular.
Right.
So
So-
Wednesday.
so we could do that, set the public hearing for the 25th,
We could.
get that done and move forward with that.
Yep.
Knock that one off.
Right, and then the only other thing that we really had right in front of us, aside from outside storage, which.
We haven't talked about.
We haven't even touched on that yet. Was the accessory buildings.
An
And,
accessory,
The
we've got
accessory
the whole
structure.
planning board stuff that we still haven't worked on,
yeah, so, but.
But
what we
to
have in
get
front of us that we
agriculture stuff
talked
out of
about
the way.
today.
right?
But for now, we'll plan on taking care of,
Even that's gonna become not difficult, but accessory uses, you're gonna have your agricultural accessory uses, and you're gonna have your, now I'm working from home, you know, what am I doing in my home?
right,
You know, and then I think Scott was looking at that issue as well as to how do we identify what's happening in people's homes so that they're working. So
You got a 50-50 chance of being on spot or not.
that's gonna be a tricky.
So the other ones I have currently that I think the board had decided on what they wanted, haven't, to my knowledge, haven't gone to a public hearing or anything like that. Accessory apartments, I don't know if that's been,
That was something we touched on briefly, and I think the reason that came up was we had a case that was brought to us by a gentleman that had a non-conforming pre-existing use. And he was looking to rehabilitate or redo, so that kind of got brought up at one of these meetings and stuff. So that one particular issue, John, I believe was resolved, but it was something,
if we're talking about what's going on down in the hamlet where you've got all sorts of illegal apartments.
Right.
the one particular case I was talking about where I
Box
think you
store.
may,
For Graves Brothers.
yes. I think that one, yes,
That's
that
also-
was resolved because it was a non-conforming pre-existing, yes. But
So-
we said that we needed to discuss that more moving forward to try and,
And they're gonna look and see what the results of the comprehensive.
yeah, that was
Yeah.
part of that.
And I have that Robert did send us a local law package
Yeah.
on accessory apartments, 120 who knows when, but again, that's what I'm saying, this is what's all out there. That's
Okay.
been sent, So,
Well, let's pull all these packages together and
Right.
finalize.
Yeah, so I sent, at least I know I sent it to some of the board, sort of my running list of things that were in workshop or. Or maybe the local law package had been set, but to my knowledge hadn't been.
Acted on.
Followed through on, so I can, if you want, I can resend something like that to the whole board again.
Yeah.
an
appreciate
updated one, yeah.
But,
New Year.
but so moving forward, we got the clean copies of these, we should be good with those.
5250.
And we need the setbacks,
Setback, I'll send
Setback.
tomorrow. I tried to-
Yeah. and then everything else that we've been working on.
Yeah, I'll send the list. I mean, some of the things that I have on here might be a little outdated. FCC 6409, I think that's been
That's
passed at
not-
this point.
Yeah.
Large scale.
Still waiting for the comments back on that, so that we can-
Oh,
Then we got-
that's right.
Right.
So I'm gonna,
And
leave
that-
thing- I'm gonna
That's
leave
right.
things on there and if you guys can strike them off, but.
Will
yeah,
do.
Yeah,
That Monroe
Large
County
scale
thing, I think
battery.
is what screws a lot of this up, because then we wait,
Well,
and then we move
Well,
on.
then we have to wait.
Yeah.
Because
So that's
it
what
didn't-
happened with
it
the
didn't get
52 and
sent in.
58.
It didn't get sent in.
large
No, it
scale
came in-
batteries on my list. I don't know if
I'm
that's
sorry?
Large scale batteries.
We
done.
did that.
prior written notice defects, local law.
We did that, I think.
Okay.
Didn't we finish that?
We talked about it. I don't
Oh
remember.
my God, did we not?
Not done?
I have written on agenda for 12/5/22 workshop.
Oh, that means we didn't put it,
I don't think we finished.
I will go through my notes. I
Oh
think
my
we did.
gosh.
I think we, but maybe we did.
okay.
Some of the other things I know that we haven't got to yet, cannabis local law, I know it's.
Yeah.
Outside storage of junk, farming law regarding agricultural buildings. Two-family multifamily dwelling is in the workshop / planning board discussions. And then the other one, Dan Chase is, farming law regarding definition for farmers market. I think,
I thought we got that. I had a sheet that had that added.
But I haven't seen the local law.
I think.
Okay, so we may- Okay,
See what
I
I'm saying?
did- I did-
It's all in our heads, but we
Yeah.
don't, we need to have it. Told I'm a visual learner.
Well, we took care of some of that more. important.
Right.
Right.
yeah, but I know, I thought we had got. I thought that was the farmer's market.
I thought we
was-
did too, but
Holy smokes, I almost thought that went through in,
That's
right,
right.
yeah, I know. I understand what you're
Well, I'll
saying.
send this list. And then the board can figure
That'd
out
be
what's
great.
going on, where it is.
Is agricultural buildings gonna be on that list?
Yes. Yeah, but I would have next to that in workshop still.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll look and see. I know, I just saw it today when I was looking. through all this.
signs are done.
Yeah, and if I,
They're ordered.
when I come across it, I'll email everybody that the farm stand definition that we had talked about.
Yeah, I have it too.
Okay,
I have
you
it
have it.
somewhere, yeah.
Okay. So if you find it before me,
Okay, farm stands shall not exceed 500 square feet of floor area. Does that sound familiar? Farm stands, it is
that was in that. the
120-7.
Yeah, but then in the act, that was all approved,
This is
Well-
local law 5 that's on E code.
yes, but what was not defined was the actual definition of a farm stand. As opposed to like a farmer's market, okay,
Farmer stands.
Oh,
are
yeah.
in here.
We did
Okay.
farm stands.
yeah, okay, and then the farmer's market, that was more. Okay,
What's the definition we wanted to add in a certain chapter.
right, because that was more of a multi. It was a multiple
Yeah.
vendor
Right, yeah.
with, yeah, okay. Yeah, I remember looking into that too. That is for the 500 feet, that was a temporary farm stand. That's where that definition was as opposed to the. Yep,
Proposed legislation of the notification of defects, so yeah. Just proposed, not adoption. All right,
Did you want to open up another?
Well, so let's regroup. How are we gonna, Robert's gonna send us his running list
They give us an-
and we'll add anything to it, right? I don't know if you can make it a shareable document, Robert, and then we can all comment on it or if whatever works best for you.
Yeah, I can look into that. It's currently just an email. form, but I can look into or maybe a Google Doc.
Well, that's all right. I
I'm
don't,
sure.
if not everyone has that ability potential.
I don't know what would be best. I'll think about it.
Okay. All right.
And then get it to all of us. All right.
No, exactly. And
Yes.
anything that is not on there that we need to be, right?
Then the last thing we have on our workshop agenda tonight
Mhm.
are the appointments that we must make for the zoning, planning, and conservation boards. And find my notes. There they are. I would like to propose resolutions for the planning board.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. All these start to look the same when you see. Yeah, thank you.
And it's my understanding that,
Let me start here.
I'm sorry,
Up on the first one?
well, I was gonna, okay, if that will be helpful. to
It
you.
will be helpful for me for taking
All
my
right.
notes.
Then I move, be it resolved that Paul Corbin be appointed to the planning board for a 5-year term beginning January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2027. Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Councilperson Corbin,
Aye.
Councilperson Chase,
Aye.
Councilperson Morale,
Aye.
Councilperson Williver,
Aye.
Supervisor Cusie.
Aye.
It's okay, Supervisor, I'll do the next one. I so move, be it resolved that John Morelli be appointed to the planning board to fill the vacant position of Jeff Warner beginning January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2025. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Councilperson Corbin,
Aye.
Councilperson Chase,
Aye.
Councilperson Morale,
Aye.
Councilperson Williver,
Aye.
Supervisor Cusie.
Aye.
And I will propose the next one. I move, be it resolved that Mac Moyes be appointed to the planning board to fill the vacated position of Rick Wurzer beginning January 1, 2023 through December 31, 2023. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Councilperson Corbin,
Aye.
Councilperson Chase.
Aye.
Councilperson Morale,
Aye.
Councilperson Williver.
Aye.
Supervisor Cusie.
Aye.
For zoning board. I would like to make a motion, be it resolved that Deborah Cusie be appointed to the zoning board of appeals for a 5-year term commencing January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2027. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Councilperson Corbin,
Aye.
Councilperson Chase.
Aye.
Councilperson Morale,
Aye.
Councilperson Williver.
Aye.
Supervisor Cusie.
Aye. I move, be it resolved that David Glocker be appointed to the zoning board of appeals to fill the vacated position of Lori Geisel beginning January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2025. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Councilperson Corbin,
Aye.
Councilperson Chase,
Aye.
Councilperson Morale,
Aye.
Councilperson Williver.
Aye.
Supervisor Cusie.
Aye. And I move, be it resolved that Julia Letterman be appointed to the conservative board for a 5-year term beginning January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2027.
I'll second that. Conservation Board.
Conservate, you said conservative board.
I'm sorry.
Councilperson Corbin,
Aye.
Councilperson Chase,
Aye.
Councilperson Morelli,
Aye.
Councilperson Williver,
Aye.
Supervisor Cusie.
Aye. And I move be it resolved that Elizabeth Hope be appointed to the Conservation Board for a 5-year term beginning January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2027. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Councilperson Corbin,
Aye.
Councilperson Chase,
Aye.
Councilperson Morelli,
Aye.
Councilperson Williver.
Aye.
Councilperson Cusie.
Aye. Okay. Any other comments from the board? If not,
Well, only, I'm reaching out to the Board of Assessment Review and I'll speak with, that person to
Yes.
find out if they'd like.
that will be fine.
Okay.
And having no further business to conduct at this meeting, I declare the meeting adjourned. All in favor?
Aye.